Christian H. Ronnie, 60, president of C.H. Ronnie Warehouse, 372 West Ontario Street, dropped dead in the Traffic Club on the 18th floor of the Hotel LaSalle, 2 weeks after he had informed his son-in-law, C.A. Christensen, cashier of the Mid-City Trust and Savings Bank, of a premonition of his death. Locklear forecasts death. Friend of aviator tells of stunt flyer's premonition. Chicago Evening American, August 4, 1920. Fort Dodge, Iowa, August 4. Lieutenant Homer Locklear, famous stunt flyer, killed in a fall at Los Angeles, Monday evening, had a premonition several weeks ago that he would meet his death this summer, according to Shirley Short, Goldfield, Iowa, original Locklear pilot. Short was married recently and is passing his honeymoon at his home. He left Locklear in Canada 3 weeks ago and had planned to rejoin him in a week. For more than a year we went together doing stunts, said Short. During that time Locklear laughed at the idea of danger until about a month ago. It was shortly after I left him that he became depressed and told me several times that he would get knocked off this summer. It worried me because it was so unlike Locklear. Writes death poem on fatal plane flight. Chicago Evening American, June 11, 1921. Washington, June 1. How Lieutenant Cleveland W. McDermott penned a death poem in the plane in which he and 6 others were crashed to death Saturday night was revealed here today. It is the story of perhaps the most remarkable premonition of death that has ever been recorded before the fatal flight. McDermott, who was a seasoned World War veteran and accustomed to hazardous flights, wrote 7 letters to as many friends. These he placed in the hands of a fellow officer, with instructions that they be mailed in the event of his death. The poem was discovered in the lieutenant's personal effects, written on a piece of scratch paper. It had been stuffed in a breast pocket of his uniform. The writing was scraggly due to the vibration of the motors. This is the death poem. Another hour and far away I fly. Alas, farewell, to my friends I cry. Then up to the rosy dawn in flight, a battle with the elements I must fight. Lost in the fog and mist and rain, tossed hither and yonder, I strive in vain to again win out as I have in the past. Little I knew this was to be my last. Sharp crash and my wings are broken back. Every wire is useless with too much slack. Down, down I swirl and slip and spin, thinking only of all my worldly sin. The earth seems rushing up to me, while rigged crags raise their heads to greet me. As twisting and twirling downward I swirl, I bid a sad goodbye to my little girl. Lower down into the trees I crash, my plane and I have gone to smash. Up from the mass call me, my untouched, unfettered spirit flies, straight to my mother's, waiting overhead. Although no one, so far as is known, saw Lieutenant McDermott write the poem, his fellow officers at Golding Field pointed out today that every indication points to it having been written during the hour preceding the fatal crash. His first act following the premonition was to write the farewell letters, said a fellow officer today. The poem obviously was written under the vibration of engines, so it follows it must have been set down during the last few minutes of his life. The officer to whom Lieutenant McDermott entrusted the farewell letters mailed them a few minutes after he heard of the fatality. In this case, the premonition seems to have served its purpose advantageously. Death had no terrors for Lieutenant McDermott. Son's dream locates his father's body. Chicago Herald Examiner, Thursday, June 23, 1921. Dickinson, North Dakota, June 22. A dream in which he saw the spot where his father's body lay led Raymond Everts, 11, to discover the body yesterday. Tim Everts, the father, was one of 3 section men drowned by a flood near Medora Saturday. Several years ago, the boy announced the death of an aunt shortly before a telegram confirmed his prophecy. When the ego impresses the lower mind of approaching danger, in dreams or otherwise, it is simply for the individual to be prepared for what is in store for him, just as a wise physician tells his patient when the end is near to be prepared. Miss Miller, 375 Brenner Street, Muncie, Germany, had a premonition of her brother drowning. She states, "My brother was a great swimmer. 2 weeks before he was drowned, I had a premonition of his death. In my dream, I saw him diving into the river. His head struck a rock. Then I saw his lifeless body float before me for 3 successive nights. I told him of my dreams. I begged him not to go bathing, but he only laughed at me, saying, 'I can protect myself in the water.' His death was the exact working out of the premonition of his death." The student of dream lore knows the ego is ever watchful, and it always impresses the lower mind when danger approaches. There are also cases which appear to indicate when the ego is unable to impress the individual. The information is often conveyed through another person, as the above would indicate, who is sensitive enough to bring the information in the waking state.